Welcome back, y'all. This is part 3 of a 4-part series. And let me first show you a close-up of my setup. It's hard to get it all on the camera. So let me show you that first, kind of what we're going to be covering today. Let me show you up close and personal what my normal workstation looks like. I got my razor tip burner. It's adjustable. We talked about that before. 2 pins. Right now, I believe one's set up with a shader, one's set up with my pointed tip. We'll talk about those. Nibs and tips in my little organizer. It works out really well with some foam. Put them in there. They're easy to grab and pull out, and you can see them. Sunflower seeds. I like my seeds. Flat screwdriver for changing nibs. These are going to be the demo that we're going to do today in the video for hair and some shading and some texture. I'll show you some techniques that I use. Recent purchase, magnifying glass. Really good for the fine detail stuff that I did on Private Hudson. You can see that on my Facebook page, or I'll put a little clip here. Sandpaper, 220 for those light burns you want to remove. 3 different erasers. I'll cover those later. Pencil. Burning pins. These are for burning larger areas, but still kind of a fine tipped torch. And then a large torch for the big areas. Then of course my drink, which is usually a glass of whiskey, but it is Sunday morning and I've got table saw work to do later, so I will not be drinking whiskey. Good. Now you've seen my setup. It's hard to show it all right here, but I do want to recap. First video, we cover tools and material, the bare minimum of what you need just to get started in this fun hobby of wood burning. Second video is image transfer. I showed how to take an image from paper, real image, and put it on your wood workpiece, whatever you want to call it. The image today is just a demo. I'm probably only going to be showing you the hair, maybe a little bit of shading. Mainly wanted to cover the hair because the image that we're going to do in the next and final video, where I show the complete burn, there's no hair. And that image you can see in the second video where we transferred it and how I transferred it. But I wanted to make sure I covered hair. I had several people kind of ask about hair. I'm not an expert on hair. Hair still gets me, y'all. But I have some techniques that have seemed to work and they come out all right. For me, we'll let you decide and tell me in the comments what you think. We've got a lot to cover today, so let's get started. Let's start out by covering tips. And I don't mean like advice, but I mean tips, formerly known as nibs in the pyrography world. Kind of showed this before. This is a cool little way of keeping your tips. Get some foam, just push them in there. Works really well, and you can pull them out easy. That's one tip for you. This is going to get confusing. Anyways, I use mainly 3 nibs for all my work. Like I hardly use anything outside of these 3. So I'm going to cover those. First one is fine line tips. I use this for any flowing lines, thin lines, hair, stubble on the face, anything like that. I'm going to use this. They're almost like a razor edge, and hot enough, and depending on the softness of the wood, they will cut and carve into the wood if you need them to a little bit. Next one I use is a shading tip. You can shade with the regular, sometimes I shade with my fine tip or other tips that I'm using at the time for small little shading, but it is worthwhile on getting yourself a good shading tip or several of them, different sizes for larger areas and so forth. I use these regularly and it's good to have. Sharp point. I've had this sharp point literally since I started wood burning. It's been a great nib. I use it a lot for texture, tiny dots. What else? Writing, like type. If I'm trying to, burn type that I've transferred onto paper. Did that recently and used it. Worked out pretty good. I use that tip quite a bit. Then you have your other tips. The spoon tip I know is very popular among a lot of artist. I don't really use it. I haven't yet. Maybe eventually I will. I just haven't had much experience with it. I only have one size. I have that small size shown here. Now, there are writing tips, ball tips. I have a couple sizes of those. I've never really cared for them. Maybe the material I was using them on wasn't good, whatever it was, but I didn't have much success in them and didn't really like them. But maybe if you were doing some cursive writing or anything like that, they'd probably be really good. I just really haven't had to do that right now. And all these tips, that's another reason why you want a couple pins. Instead of changing these out, which is not that big of a deal, but you can just change pins that quick instead of, you know, that whole process. It's not that big of a process. But when you're burning and you're enjoying yourself, sipping your whiskey, whatever your drink of choice may be, last thing you want to do is sit there and change nibs. So having these extra pins is great. They're not really that expensive on razor tip, depending on your feeling of cost. I can't remember exactly what they cost, but I'm sure other burners are probably a lot cheaper. Razor tip is, like I've said, on the higher end and more expensive. But I'm going to tell you right now, from what I've used, the quality is bar none. And no, I'm not sponsored. All right, let's cover secrets. They're probably not really secret, but there are things that I've learned along the way or from others, and I'm going to share them with you in case you don't know them. And if you have anything else that I'm missing in this video, feel free to leave it in the comments. I'm still learning this art every time I do it. I'm by no means done learning on this. I have a long way to go. Shading. Like I said, get you a good shading tip. Those shading tips will come in handy, and it's good to have them. So make sure you have some shading tips if you haven't already purchased any. And if you haven't used them yet, maybe you're timid of them or whatever, start playing around with them. Practice. Really good way to practice is make a circle and see if you can shade it to make it a 3D object, like a 3D ball or something. That'll really help you with adjusting the shading. With shading, learn to be patient, y'all. Shading is not just something you do real quick. Often you got to turn your burner way down and you may not even see the burn. Like, for instance, somebody that I follow and they follow me in wood burning, I think her name's Shelby, recently did a white dress. I thought that was very interesting. She described how she did the white dress by shading really, really lightly. Turned out fabulous. I don't know if she watches these, but Shelby, excellent job on that. And I thought it was interesting how she tackled that, but it was starting at a very low heat. Make your lines. You may not even see them for a while. Maybe take a picture of it. It'll show better on the camera of what it actually looks like. Your eye may not even pick it up because you're sitting there doing it and it looks like the rest of the wood. And this is exactly why some of my pieces have taken 10, 15, 16 hours to complete, just because of the detail and the shading and the slow process. That's another thing about this art, how like if you charge what it took you to do some of these pieces, I don't know if anybody'd buy them. It'd be a lot. If I charged $25 an hour for my piece, like I do in my woodworking, they would be expensive. Hair. This is a big one. Still scares me. We will not, like I said, we will not be burning any hair in the image in the next video, so I wanted to cover it here since I won't be able to talk about it there. Start by getting you a nice fine line sharp nib, like I showed you. One of these razor type nibs. I mean, it's pretty sharp. It would cut you. If you ran that across your skin the right way, it would cut you. It's sharp. Transferring the image is key too with your hair. I'm not going to put every strand from this image on here. I blocked out, you notice, the dark areas. Use those as reference of where you're at on here, because this is what I'm going to be looking at when I'm wood burning. So the dark areas I'll kind of tackle first as I'm going. Then from there, you can lightly shade the lighter areas. Like in this case, being blonde hair, this can be kind of difficult, but basically you're just going to have, when you get up to the top here, you're going to have these dark blocked out areas where you see in the picture that are dark, and then light. And then it might just be light wood burning with very, very light lines hidden in those. Another good thing is when you're printing these out, I printed out two. One lighter for when I transfer the image so I can see everything better. One darker so I could see really where the dark is. And I'll basically just have these in front of me when I'm burning that. Here is another example of me doing a commission piece. it was a different type of hair. You can see that I kind of blocked it out. It was kind of curlier, but you can see me here doing that one. All right, when you are burning, might need to remove marks. One of them that you might need to remove is a shaded area. Maybe you burned it too much, whatever the case may be. Maybe you just need to lighten it. 220 sandpaper works great. That's why at the beginning of my video, you've seen the sandpaper sitting there. You can usually remove it or at least get it light enough that works for you. Next one, pencil. You might have some extra pencil laying around that on your piece you want to remove. Regular old eraser works fantastic. Last, definitely not least, is carbon marks. I'm sure y'all have dealt with carbon marks before. Maybe you got a dark one, a lighter one. Maybe your thumbnail hit it. Something sharp hit it while you were transferring your image. Regular eraser is not going to work, y'all. What you need, and I'll link it, is this eraser for ink. It actually has sand embedded in it, and it works really well. And this comes in handy if you're doing a piece and you have shading that is going to be lighter than your carbon reference mark. I recently had this on a piece where I had to do a gun or whatever, and it was blurry, and I wanted it really light. But when I was done, you could still see the carbon. I actually ordered this for that. Worked great. So these are good little tools to have with you when you're working on your pieces. Let's talk a little bit about torches and how these are used. As you saw on my table at the beginning of the video, I had 3 different torches. These are actually the same torch, just 2 different colors. I'll link these. Sharp flame, really useful. If you're trying to do some, let's say I just want to do some larger shading above that, fine line, come down. I can get pretty precise with it. I did a Jason Voorhees using almost these solely, and it turned out phenomenal. That piece just sold last month. One of my favorite pieces I did. I'll put it up here, but it looked 3D. It was like his mask. This is pretty much all I use. The next one is propane torch. These are obviously, you want to do some big areas. You can really shade those in. I gotta warn you though, you go too aggressive, you will burn through the top layer of this, and it can look like crap. So you still gotta be careful. Also, it may warp your piece. If you're doing a large area, it may warp your piece, and you have to deal with that later. But it's still very handy when you're wanting to do a large spot. I hope this helps you some way, fashion, or form, and maybe it was entertaining. I don't know. But the next video and the final video of this little wood burning series, we are going to go ahead and burn the image that we transferred in part 2. Yep. And in that video, there'll be some time lapse, real time. I will make sure that I am covering all the important stuff like the eyes, shading. There's saliva. Do some saliva in there. That'll be interesting. I'm really looking forward to burning this. Horror is my favorite, like I said. But hopefully you will join us on that. If you do decide to join us on that, you're welcome. If you go back to video 2 in the description, I linked a way for you to download this image that I use, exact same one. You can transfer it and you can burn along with me. And if you do decide to do that, I would love to see your work. Actually, if y'all do any work, feel free to send me the pictures. You can send them to my Facebook Messenger, which is Custom Woodworking, down below, or my Google. It's all in the description. Hell, I even got a P.O. box now, y'all. And remember, I am giving away those free stickers if you send me an envelope, so don't forget about that. Just send me the empty envelope with postage and your address on it, and I'll put the stickers in there and send it back to you. So if you're interested in a free sticker, go ahead and do it. Anyways, thank y'all for watching. I always appreciate it. And hopefully I hear from you in the comments, and see you on the next video. I'm looking forward to it. See you later.